Welcome, everyone, to Modern Mom Podcast. It is so wonderful to have all of you with me today. Today's guest is someone who has worn many hats: journalist, author, TV host, advocate, and now also a mentor for media professionals. She's definitely someone you're going to want to meet and probably have in your Rolodex on and saved in your phone because she's someone very, very special. So René Syler, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you, my friend?
Oh, hi, Winnie. What an introduction. Thank you so much. And I'm so happy to be here with you. I can't wait to talk about all things motherhood and
Oh,
more.
oh my goodness, I love it. This is a topic that I think we know well, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. Don't we know it well? I mean, my kids are older. And so I come at this from a sort of a different perspective, but they are, they're 28 and 26 and it's now fun. It's really, and I didn't know if we were ever going to get to that point because boy, parenting can really take it out of you, as you know.
I mean, maybe, right? But I love it. You're a very experienced mommy, and I'm so happy to celebrate that you're enjoying this phase. I mean, you've had such an incredible career, like from anchoring the early show to like writing Good Enough Mother and beyond. I mean, this is sort of like that new phase of your life, right? I mean, that's something that I think we're looking forward to.
Yeah, when I wrote Good Enough Mother, I was still working at CBS at the time, and my kids were young, so they were probably 6 and 8, like around that age. And so I was doing what most moms do, which is trying to keep all the balls in the air. And at one point I realized that I couldn't keep them all in the air, that some were going to fall and that everybody was going to have to be okay with it. But the fact was I was really doing the best I could. And I really had to make peace with that, with understanding that the best I could do was there wasn't anything better than that, right? So it meant that I was still working hard in my job and working hard at being a mom, but I had to be a little bit more forgiving with myself. And that was why I kind of came up with Good Enough Mother.
Well, I want you to talk about being more forgiving. I think
Mhm.
a lot of us moms were pushing hard, right? I've got three myself. We've got careers. We're juggling, like, packing lunches and everything else that the kids have with all their activities. When you think about being more forgiving to ourselves, what are you talking about?
So when I wrote Good Enough Mother, I was just sort of getting into online media. So I had used the internet like the way most people use the internet, which was when you were looking for something. But right around, 2010, 2012, 2015, right in there when the internet shifted from something that we just consumed to something that we really used, as in building brands and things like that. It changed for a lot of us. And I called it Pinterest parenting, actually, that we were trying to present this view of motherhood that really didn't exist in real life. And it really was just setting so many of us up for failure or to feel like we were failing. And, the thing about motherhood is that there is no manual really that you're really depending upon your gut. You're going with your gut. And you really don't have anybody saying, or if you do, they're few and far between, people saying, hey, you're doing a good job. Hey, I know you forgot your kid's birthday at school and the donuts and whatever, but you had all these other things going on, but you're doing the best you can. And we were just self-flagellating, just really taking it out on ourselves. And so when I took all that in and I realized that part of that was just my personality, which was, hey, I got to do what I can do and the rest I got to let go. And then so I decided to make a philosophy about it and to write about it. And that's where I came in with, we got to let go of the Pinterest parenting. We got to let go of your kids come home and they say, oh, Johnny's doing this, so I want to do it too. And we're trying to keep up with the Joneses and all that craziness. We were parenting for everybody except the people for whom it was the most important, which would have been our children and for us. And that's where I felt like, at least when my kids were young, I felt like I saw that a lot more than I do now. I feel like today's moms are kind of getting it. They're not so Pinteresty parenting and putting the perfect face forward, and they're okay with making mistakes and owning them. And for that, I applaud them.
I love what you said. I think, Renee, I love that. Pinterest parenting. I certainly
Mhm.
think Instagram parenting was a big thing.
Mm.
I do think that with the younger generation, millennials having kids now, soon in the future will be Gen Z. Now we're kind of moving into that TikTok parenting. And I think it's true. I think what you mentioned is so true, where now it's about being real. Like, sometimes the house is going to be a mess. Maybe all the time the house is going to be a mess. Maybe you're going to forget like to pick up on time sometimes. And you mentioned donuts. Sometimes we feed our kids donuts and it's
Yes,
going to be okay, right? They're going to live.
exactly.
But
Right, right.
I love what you said about all of this. But I really also want to ask you about this because yes, you wrote the book and it was perfectly timed. But it's not like you're being a lazy mom too, because we need to talk about elite media mastery. Like, what led to this next evolution in your career? Like, what is this? What did you do, Renee?
Yeah.
And why should we care?
So one of the things that I want, and I'm so honored that you invited me on your show because I really want women to understand that life is long. God willing, I mean, if we take good care of ourselves and do the right thing, make sure our stress is under control and all that stuff, we can live hopefully a good long life. And in that life, we're going to have multiple incarnations. We're going to have multiple second acts. I remember when I first left, CBS, I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll move into my next act. Do you know I've had probably 6 acts since then? The evolution continues. It's ongoing. It's not something that it's you don't cross a finish line and then you just go, okay, well, I guess I'm going to just put my feet up and I'm done here. It's not that at all. It's always learning and growing and changing and shifting and doing things different. And so for me, I feel very much like, so I just turned 62, which I cannot believe. I'm always stunned when I think about that because I'm like, wow, that was fast. But the reason I bring that up is to say that it's just, I'm moving into a place where I feel like now I'm the world is opening up for me again. Okay. So when I was younger, before I had kids, the world was open and I could make choices because I wanted to do the things that I wanted to do. I didn't have to double check with anybody. I didn't have to worry about anybody else's schedule, all of that. Then I spent the next about 20 years, right? Taking care of a family and kids and running everybody to practices and school plays and all of that stuff and putting myself a bit on the back burner. Okay. Everybody's grown now. Everybody's, full adults making money, living on their own with significant others and so on and so forth. And so because of that, I have literally done the thing I was supposed to do as a mom, which is that I launched these babies into the world. And now it's time for me again. And I cannot explain to you how exciting it is to feel like the world is opening back up for me, that I can try new things. I can make new friends. I can travel. I can do all of the things that I want to do. And there are a lot still. And so to your question, what I did was I came up with, I had been working for a company, which I loved, but I really decided that in this last whatever part of my life, third, I look at my life in thirds. I was like, this last third of my life, I really want to spend the time doing the things that A, I enjoy, and B, that I'm really good at. And so I decided that I was going to lean hard into my media coaching business. I've coached people to be on camera and all of those different things for many, many, many years. But I really wanted to go back to that because that is my strength. That is where I excel. That is where I get the most, that feeds my soul the most, is by helping others hone their message, be clear about their communication, figure out if they want to get on TV, how do they get on TV? What do they do once they're there, and so on. And so that was the genesis of Elite Media Mastery. And I've been working on some form of this for probably the last 10 years. And so now it's just about to be birthed. I'm about to, the website is up and running and I'm taking on more clients. So I'm really, really excited. And I just love this idea of learning once again.
Well, I feel your energy and excitement to your message and when you're
good.
talking about this. I love it. I can feel like the passion in here. And I can relate on so many of the things that you talked about, like that transition and the change. I remember when we sort of moved, my sister and I moved out of the house, my mom said, it was interesting when you all went to college because I actually was able to eat first. I could see the dishes on the table and I could decide that I wanted that. So I'm going to eat that. I'm going to cook what I want to eat. I'm going to order and she's like, that was really different. And so it's like those things you don't really think about until you sort of think about it. One thing, I'm guessing your kids are probably very good on camera, since mom was. And I know that, we talked about earlier how you've hung out with Beyonce and Jennifer Lopez and you've danced with celebrities and whatnot. So this is like it coming full circle.
Yeah.
And now, I guess I want to talk also about sort of this business that you have. Who is your ideal client? Mm-hmm. Who do you love working with? Mm-hmm. And have there been any aha moments for you during this journey?
Yeah. So to go back to what you said about my kids being good on camera, they hate being on camera.
Really? I'm surprised.
They will. So when I was in my early blogging days, I would, like we all did, we took pictures of our kids and blah, 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 blah.
For sure.
They want no part of that. And I don't think they've ever actually sat down and watched me on TV. They really, when they would get excited would be when I was interviewing somebody that they knew. But other than that,
they
were
weren't
like,
excited about Beyonce.
My daughter was, but later, because, at the time when she was like 7 or 9 or whatever, she was like, yeah, I don't get it. But she gets it now because she's a huge part of the beehive. So, but in terms of like who I work with, what I really want is I want to take what I learned over 30 years and have it transform people in their ability to communicate. So I told you a while back, a few minutes back, that I had turned 62. And one of the big things I noticed about turning this age was that for somebody who's been in front of the camera and been on camera her whole career, I have less desire to be on camera and more desire to help others. It's less about me and more about how can I serve? How can I help people get to the next level? How can I, so it's about leaving and living a legacy instead of, being famous or whatever. That stuff is, that in a quarter will get you a cup of coffee. Not even that nowadays, but you know what I mean? Like it just, something really shifted in me. And that shift was very profound and pronounced. And it was really about how do I serve now? Which seems odd because I guess you might feel like after serving, your kids for all these years in the form of parenting, you might feel like, oh, I'm just going to put my feet up for a bit. But it's different. It's really important to me to be able to say that I left my mark in a better way. I made the world a better place by doing what I do. So my ideal client is for somebody who, say, has a great message and doesn't know how to get it out there, or gets, frozen up on camera, or needs just any kind of coaching. That would be my ideal client. And what I get from that is I get fed from knowing that I helped them as they got their message out to the world. So that's really where I am right now in my journey in this thing we call life. It's weird because it sounds like, you're 60 years old or 62 years old. And now you're all like this old, wise sage.
Oh my
And
God,
I'm
no, I think
not.
it's exciting. I mean, I think it's great because it's like you're giving people the ability to talk about themselves on camera and
Yeah.
feel comfortable and confident. It's a beautiful thing. And having all the experience, you might as well do this, right? I mean, so many moms actually talk about losing themselves and motherhood,
Mm,
right? But now
yes.
you're doing something that we want people to know that 52 is the new 32 or 22. There's no reason why you can't start full circle and create something
Right.
really big and exciting. Um,
Yes.
let me ask you this. You help a lot of people now transition. They have a message. They go on camera. They're talking about what's important to them. Maybe, segueing into a side hustle or a business for themselves. Or it could be just something that they've always wanted to do. What's something that surprised you? Because I did ask you about your aha moment. I do want to circle back on that. Anything that surprised you as you've been working with your new clients?
Well, I'll say this. I believe everybody has a story, and my aha moments come when people discover their stories, when they're able to actually not just discover their stories, but make them in a way that is tangible for other people to learn from. Like I'm one of those people who's like, when you sit down and talk to people, you meet some stranger. And I used to die when my mom would do it, but you're in a waiting room somewhere and you're talking to someone and you're just peppering them with questions because they're so interesting. My aha moment is that everybody is like that. Everybody has a thing that makes them interesting, sometimes many things that make them interesting. But we don't take the time to sit down and get in the zone with people. We're too busy, moving too fast. We don't really get on the level. And more than that, we're not giving people undivided attention. We're not active listening, all of those things. And so that's like, those are real big barriers to communication and to healthy relationships. So I did an interview recently. I was doing a podcast myself, and I had interviewed a woman, and she had come in with her sort of her script ready to go. She was already on fire. She knew what she was going to say. She had all of her one-liners ready and all of that stuff. And she missed the moment. She missed the quiet moments that come when you're having authentic communication with someone. And sadly, it doesn't take a lot to get there, but it does require you to be sort of in the same space with someone and being vulnerable. And I just find that it was too bad because it was a wasted opportunity. But yeah.
Well, hopefully she'll, circle back with you and learn from you and get another opportunity. Like that's what we can hope. I mean, when you work with these different clients, I mean, I do feel like most people could benefit from learning how to speak confidently on
Mhm.
camera because
Yep.
it's not just speaking on camera. People say, "Oh, well, I don't have a business. I'm just a
Mhm.
mom." But what do you say to that?
Well, first of all, nobody's just a mom. That's a
Exactly.
whole
Thank
lot
you.
we know that. But what's interesting is what happened with social media and during, the 2012, 2013, 2014, right around there, where the internet kind of really did shift from, being this thing that we just were, I mean, the usage changed. The smartphone gave us all the ability to become producers as well as consumers. That means that you have an opportunity. If you have a point of view and you're consistent, you have an opportunity to build your tribe and to monetize if that's what you decide you want to do. So you do need to know how to communicate on camera. You do need the things that I talk about a lot are television based, but there's a lot of carryover on that. So yeah, I just feel like I'm with you on that. I think that learning how to speak to the dot, knowing how knowing how to take a picture, not looking at yourself on your screen, but looking into the lens, like things like that actually have value because those things can help you build your brand if that's ultimately what you want to do. But ultimately, I feel like all the moms who might be listening to this, I would just say, be thinking about the time when you're on your own again. What is that going to look like? I think that a lot of us are like, oh, that's so far off. And I can't devote any energy to that because I've got to take so-and-so to a doctor's appointment and I've got to, and we get lost in that. We get lost in the busy, and you don't have to do that. You can plan for a time when, your world starts to open up again and that you get to do the things just for you again. I do believe that that's also a big part of the reason that I'm big into women taking care of themselves while, they're going through the beatdown of of day-to-day parenting.
For sure.
You need to eat right. You need to drink enough water. You need to exercise. You need to keep your brain stimulated because at some point it's going to be back to you.
Yep.
So,
You sure will.
mhm.
And I appreciate that, Renee, and I agree with you completely. One of the things that you had mentioned was the importance of seeing like your next chapter. And I want to jump in and talk about why I think this is so valuable, what you're doing for this new chapter and, people all over, is I do feel like when you can speak comfortably on camera, that also translates to what you touched upon, which is being more present in your
Mhm.
communication with the person that you're speaking to. And I've seen it in my own experience. I feel like those are skills that then translate well when to your other relationships, like when you're talking to your
Mhm.
kids, right? It
Yeah.
could be about, honey, let's talk about your report card. But instead of speaking, but when we're present, we also
Yeah.
end up being better listeners, and
Mhm.
they learn from us and our ability to speak, and it helps them as well. Because actually, we had talked about this a little just earlier. My kids actually, I'm proud to say they're actually pretty good on camera, and I don't
Oh,
think
good.
they normally would be, but they surprisingly are okay. Um, but I love this. And I do think that what you're talking about not only is media skills for people if they're side hustle, or like you said, everybody has a story, but it also gives you confidence that you have a skill that you may not think
Yep.
that you can conquer, but with the right instructor with what 30 plus
Mhm.
years of experience, someone who's hung out with the who's who and been on network television. I mean, you're exactly the type of person that I think a lot of people are going to gravitate to. So let me ask you this, Renee. After all that, we need to talk a little bit about this. A lot of people say, like, we're dealing with so much, right?
Mhm.
Well, you don't know, Renee, my story. You don't know
Mhm.
my journey. I've dealt with this and this and this. But I feel like, Renee, maybe you could deep dive into this a little bit for us. Your journey hasn't been smooth either, right? You've
No.
had some health challenges, wellness issues. You want to
Yeah.
talk about that a little bit, or you want to pass?
Sure. Yeah, no, sure. When I was younger, I thought for sure I had laid out my life. I was like, all right, I've graduated from college and now I'm going to get married and then I'm going to have my 2.2 kids and then I'm going to live happily ever after. It never works like that. It
Mhm.
never works like that. So back then, I started to understand this really critical piece of information, which was the life you plan is not the life you lead. And knowing that has kept me malleable and sort of so I could kind of move and groove with whatever the issues were. And sometimes I got knocked down harder than others, but I always got back up. I always understood that, you just keep going, that you don't just quit and that you only fail when you quit. Now, those things are easy to say when you're sitting on a pile of money or things are going well or your health is good or what have you. A little bit more difficult when, things are not going well. And so, I had lost my job at CBS. I'd been fired, which was like kind of the first big, I would say, really big hiccup in my life and career. And that didn't happen until I was like 40, probably 42 or
Mhm.
so. And then the year after that, I had a mother and father who had breast cancer. So the year after that, I got fired in December. In January, I had decided to have a preventive mastectomy. Now that had all been planned before I got fired. So I
Wow.
was still going through with the surgery. So I did that. then I ended up having, I wrote a book, Good Enough Mother, and I was on a book tour. And while I was on this book tour, I got sick and I ended up with bronchitis.
Oh
And the
no.
bronchitis, and while I was in the hospital, I was hospitalized for 3, 4 days. And while I was in the hospital, they were just pumping me full of all of these, drugs that, steroids and antibiotics and all the stuff to try to get my health back together.
Right.
When I got out, I had an interview at CNN and I was like, oh my gosh, I need to get my hair relaxed.
Mhm.
I was relaxing my hair straight while I was on TV
Okay.
because that was the style that Black women wore on camera. So I had gone with all of this medicine in me, gone to get my hair relaxed. And do you know what happened? It fell out. It
Oh
broke off
no.
right in the crown. It broke off and started falling out in the sink. And I was like, oh my God. So I made a decision that I didn't want to relax my hair anymore. I was like, I'm off camera. I have a daughter who I didn't know how to do her hair because I didn't know how to do my own hair. And so I made it my job and my journey to go natural. Now I hadn't seen my natural hair since I was 16 years old and begged my mom to let me put a relaxer in my hair. Well, now, so this is like the third incarnation. And so it's so funny because this is again mirrors the journey. So now I have what's called sister locks. So after I went natural, I was natural for about 10 years. And then this is the next phase. And this is sister locks. They're like mini locks in my hair. I cannot even tell you how much I love it. I cannot tell you
Well,
how
you
much
know, I
I
love
love
it.
my hair and I love the gray and I love everything about it. And so but it took a second to get there. And you know what happened was when I started shedding these things that were inauthentic, that's when I really started to be like, oh, I'm actually kind of a cool person. And oh, I really dig these curls that come out of my head naturally. And so it was this radical self acceptance that, made all the difference. And that's kind of where I am now. And I'm 7 months in my Sister Locks journey. And I'm telling you, this will be the style until the day I die, but I just love it.
I feel like there's a song for Sister Luxury. It's a great little title. So cute. I've been loving your passion and your happiness. So Renee, we
Oh,
gotta talk about this. What's next for you? Any exciting projects you've got that you're diving
oh.
into?
Wow. Well, so I had gone back to work full time about 2 years ago, and I was working for this great company, and I loved it. But I was doing a lot of things that were not necessarily in my wheelhouse, and so I left about a month ago. But what's interesting is they helped me understand that I do want to produce and direct. So I've had a long journey in front of the camera. And about a year ago, I said, I really would like to direct a short film. And do you know, when I said that out loud, somebody came to me and said, hey, listen, we're looking for a director for this piece. I've never directed before in my
You
life.
manifested it,
I
Renee.
manifested it, but that's what you do when you, and the other piece about it is that, like, I think people, and I'm not huge in manifestation. I don't know how this works necessarily, but I do
Neither
know
do I.
this. I do know this, that you can't just put it out there, just say the words. Things have to be in place. And so
Absolutely.
what had happened to me is I was ready. I had been talking about it. I had been looking and doing some research. I
You're
had been reading
thinking.
up on it.
Yeah, you were
Exactly.
doing your
And so
research.
that when I put it out there, I already had the background. So it wasn't like I was starting from scratch. I had been actually directing in other incarnations in my life. I just never directed a short film. But yeah, it's like we have the ability to try new things. If there's anything that anybody takes away from this, me rambling on about whatever, is that life, you have one go around, one time. Don't leave anything on the floor.
Make it count.
or leave it all on the floor, whatever that saying is. Do it all.
Do
Do
it
it
all.
all.
I love it. Do it all. Well,
Yes.
Renee, I love this do it all. I mean, I feel pumped just from talking to you. So, Let me ask you this before we wrap up. Okay, you know the golden question we got to ask.
Oh
Anything I didn't
gosh.
ask you that you'd love to share that we didn't talk about?
I would just say I would love more women to lean lean into their instincts more and stop it with the what are people going to say and how is this going to look, and do what makes you happy. If and forget about what everybody, oh my gosh, you get to a certain age and you're just like, oh god, I don't have the energy for that.
For
And
sure.
that's how I feel now. I'm like, you're either with me or against me, and I don't care if you're against me, that's fine, but just get out of my way. So that's all I would say. Trust yourselves.
Trust yourself, find your people, surround yourself with positivity, and ask yourself, why not me? Because I think all
Exactly.
of us deserve that, right? Renee,
It's,
this conversation has been so fun. I
oh,
I absolutely adore you. I'm sending you a hug. This
no.
beautiful. I think that everybody who's listening, I'm hoping you're leaving today with a little bit more joy because I feel so happy. So thank you so much,
Oh,
Renee, for just being you, for being
oh,
honest.
Winnie, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time.
Oh, it is such a treat. You are such a sweetheart and you're joy and you're so funny. I love it. And to everybody who's been hanging out with us and listening, that was fun, right? That was pretty awesome. If you love this episode, you know what to do. You got to share with a friend. You got to leave us a review and you got to stay tuned because we have even more amazing conversations. And of course, whatever you do, make sure to connect with Renee. How do people find you, Renee? Where do they go?
You just email me at Rene, and it's one E, Rene, only one E at the end, at elitemediamastery.com.
I love it. Elite Media Mastery, Good Enough Mother, all that good
Yes,
stuff. And
all
she's
of them.
also on Instagram and Threads at Good Enough Mother as well. So
Yes.
you could also, follow her, DM her, all that good stuff. You know what to do. I mean, come on, you're a modern mom. I love it. Well, thank you so much, my friends, for being here. And most important, thank you, Renee, for making the time and just sharing your joy and being real. And most importantly, not waiting for something good to happen to you because even though you didn't know how to manifest, you manifested. And I
Right.
manifested that we are going to have good times today. And we had a great time. So with that, I think we're a wrap. We'll see you again very soon. All right. Take care.